Hey, beautiful souls! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, this is where we dive into stories that remind us that love really can conquer anything. Today, I have something incredibly special for you, the kind of happy ending that makes your heart sing. So, grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into it. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're ready for some serious feels.
The whispers started the moment Emma Chen walked through the office doors, her barely visible pregnancy bump triggering a storm of judgment that would shatter more than just workplace gossip. Emma adjusted her thrift store blazer and kept her eyes down as she made her way to her desk in the accounting department of Sterling Enterprises. At 24, she'd worked here for 2 years, invisible to everyone except when they needed their expense reports filed or their coffee refilled. But this morning was different. This morning, Sarah Chen from HR had made an announcement that would change everything. "Did you hear?" whispered Jessica from marketing, loud enough for half the floor to hear. "The cleaning girl is pregnant. No ring, no boyfriend anyone's ever seen. How embarrassing." Emma's cheeks burned as she sat at her desk, pretending to focus on spreadsheets while the gossip swirled around her like poison. "I heard she's keeping it," added Marcus from sales, his voice dripping with disdain. "Single mother working minimum wage. That kid doesn't have a chance." "Maybe she doesn't know who the father is," Jessica laughed cruelly. "You know how these people are." Emma's hands trembled as she tried to type. These people, as if being working class made her somehow less moral, less worthy of respect. What they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that 3 floors up in the executive suite, the father of her baby sat in the corner office, completely unaware of the hell his employees were putting her through. 5 months ago, Emma had been working late, cleaning the executive floor after everyone had gone home. She'd been exhausted, pulling double shifts to pay for her mother's medication when she'd found him. James Sterling, heir to the Sterling fortune, CEO of the company at just 31, had been slumped over his desk, empty whiskey bottle beside him, tears staining the quarterly reports scattered across the mahogany surface. "Sir?" Emma had whispered, afraid to disturb him but worried he might need help. James had looked up with red-rimmed eyes that held more pain than any rich man should carry. "My brother," he'd said simply. "Car accident. The funeral was today." Emma should have called security, should have left him to grieve in private. Instead, she'd sat down across from his desk and listened as the most powerful man she knew broke apart completely. That night had led to others. Quiet conversations after hours, shared coffee in the empty break room, a friendship that bloomed in the shadows between their worlds. James saw her more than the invisible cleaning girl. He saw her mind, her humor, her dreams of going back to school. And Emma saw past the suits and the boardroom facade to the lonely man who carried the weight of a company and a family legacy he'd never asked for. The night they'd crossed the line from friendship to something deeper, James had whispered against her hair, "I don't care about any of it. The money, the expectations, the differences. I just care about you." But morning had brought reality crashing down. A hostile takeover attempt, family pressure, board meetings that stretched for weeks. James had been pulled back into his world of corporate warfare, and Emma had been left to navigate hers alone. She'd tried to tell him about the pregnancy twice, showing up at his office only to find him in crucial meetings she couldn't interrupt. The third time, his assistant had looked at her with such disdain that Emma had lost her courage entirely. How do you tell a billionaire CEO that the cleaning girl is carrying his child? Have you ever felt invisible in a place where you spend most of your time? Sometimes, the people who see us least are the ones we're around most. Share your thoughts in the comments below. "Emma!" Jessica's voice cut through her thoughts. "I'm talking to you." Emma looked up to find several coworkers gathered around her desk like vultures circling prey. "We're all just wondering," Jessica continued with false sweetness, "if you've thought about what's best for the baby. I mean, raising a child alone on your salary. Maybe she could give it up for adoption, find some nice couple who can actually provide for it. Emma's protective instincts flared. That's none of your business. It becomes our business when you'll probably be asking for handouts, food drives, clothing donations. We'll all end up supporting your mistake. My baby is not a mistake, Emma said quietly, but her voice carried steel. Right, Jessica laughed. Because getting pregnant by some random guy and thinking you can raise a kid on minimum wage is such a brilliant plan. Emma stood up slowly, her hands resting protectively over her stomach. You don't know anything about my situation. I know enough, Marcus smirked. Single, broke, and knocked up. Pretty much tells the whole story. What none of them saw was James Sterling stepping off the elevator, having come down to personally review the quarterly numbers instead of summoning Emma to his office. He'd been thinking about her more lately, wondering why she seemed to avoid him, planning to ask her for coffee again. He heard the laughter first, then the cruel words that made his blood run cold. James had never felt rage like this, pure protective fury that someone would dare to attack the woman he loved, because that's what he'd finally admitted to himself during all those sleepless nights. He was completely, desperately in love with Emma Chen.
James Sterling stood in the doorway of the accounting department, his presence commanding immediate silence. The cruel laughter died as employees suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. I asked if there was a problem here, James repeated, his voice carrying the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. Jessica cleared her throat, attempting her most professional smile. Oh, Mr. Sterling, no problem at all. We were just having a friendly conversation with Emma about life choices. James's eyes found Emma's across the room. She sat frozen at her desk, one hand protectively covering her stomach, tears threatening to spill. In that moment, every piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Her recent absence from night shifts, the way she'd tried to approach his office, the exhaustion he'd noticed in her beautiful dark eyes. She was carrying his child, and these vultures had been tormenting her. Life choices, James repeated slowly, stepping further into the room. How interesting. Please, continue your conversation. I'd love to hear more about these friendly observations. Marcus, emboldened by what he assumed was executive support, straightened his tie. Well, sir, we were just discussing how irresponsible it is for someone in Emma's position to have a baby. Single, minimum wage, no father in sight. It's not fair to the child, really. Not fair to the company either. She'll probably expect special treatment, time off, maybe even financial assistance. James felt his jaw tighten. And you've made these assumptions based on what exactly? Well, look at her. Marcus gestured dismissively toward Emma. Young, unmarried, working a dead-end job, obviously got involved with some guy who ran off when things got complicated. Emma's composure finally cracked. Stop, she whispered, then louder. Just stop talking about me like I'm not here. We're only being realistic, Jessica said with false sympathy. Some people need to hear hard truths. Hard truths, James repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Let me share a hard truth with you. The entire floor held its breath. The hard truth is that you're gossiping about things you know nothing about, making assumptions about situations you couldn't possibly understand. James moved closer to Emma's desk, his presence protective. But most importantly, you're disrespecting someone I care about very much. Emma looked up at him in shock. Around them, confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Have you ever watched someone defend you when you thought you were completely alone? Sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Sir, Marcus stammered, I don't understand. Then let me make it crystal clear. James said, reaching for Emma's hand and helping her stand. Emma Chen is not some irresponsible girl who made a mistake. She's an intelligent, hard-working woman who's been taking care of her sick mother while working 2 jobs to make ends meet. She's shown more strength and integrity than anyone in this room. Jessica's face went pale. Mr. Sterling, we didn't realize you knew her personally. Personally? James' laugh was sharp. I know her better than I've known anyone in my life. I know she stays late without extra pay to make sure every report is perfect. I know she gave her lunch money to a homeless man outside the building last week. I know she reads philosophy books during her breaks because she dreams of going back to school. Emma's eyes widened as James revealed details of conversations she thought no one remembered. And I know, James continued, his voice growing softer but no less intense, that the father of her baby loves her more than his own life, even though he's been too caught up in corporate nonsense to show it properly. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus was the first to understand, his face draining of color. You're saying that I'm saying that Emma Chen is carrying my child. And if any of you ever speak to her with anything less than complete respect again, you'll be looking for new jobs before the end of the day. Jessica stumbled backward, her cruel confidence evaporating. Oh my God, we didn't know. We never would have. That's the problem, James cut her off. You never would have treated any person the way you treated Emma today. The fact that you thought it was acceptable because she's just a cleaning girl tells me everything I need to know about your character. Emma stared at James in amazement, hardly believing this public declaration was real. James, Emma turned to him, her voice gentle now. I tried to tell you. I know, he said softly, pulling her into his arms. I'm so sorry you had to face this alone.
The elevator ride to James's executive floor felt like ascending to another world. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as the numbers climbed, 28, 29, 30. With each floor, the weight of what had just happened pressed down harder. James had claimed her, publicly, in front of the entire accounting department. The elevator dinged softly, and James guided her through the familiar hallway she'd cleaned countless times after hours. But walking it beside him in daylight felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. His corner office was exactly as she remembered, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle, mahogany desk where they'd shared so many midnight conversations, leather couch where he'd first kissed her 5 months ago. Sit, James said gently, gesturing to the couch. Please. Emma perched on the edge, her hands folded protectively over her stomach. Now that the adrenaline was fading, reality crashed over her like ice water. James, what did you just do down there? What I should have done months ago. He sat beside her, careful to maintain space between them. Protected you. Claimed what's mine. What's yours? Emma cracked. I'm not your property. This baby isn't your possession to claim when it's convenient. James flinched. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Emma stood up, pacing to the windows. For 5 months, I've been invisible to you. I tried to tell you about the pregnancy twice, but you were too busy with board meetings and corporate crises to see me. Now, suddenly, when your employees embarrass you with their gossip, you swoop in like some white knight? Emma, that's not fair. Fair! She whirled to face him. What's not fair is that I've been facing this alone, while you've been pretending our nights together never happened. What's not fair is that I've been working 2 jobs to save money for doctor visits, while you probably spend more on lunch than I make in a week. James stood slowly, his hands raised in surrender. You're right, about all of it. I've been a coward. The simpy admission deflated some of them as anger, but hurt rushed in to fill the space. Why? Why did you disappear after that night? James ran his hairs through his hair, messing up the perfect executive styling. Because I was terrified.
Not of you, not of what we felt, but of what it meant. The board was pushing for a hostile takeover. My family was pressuring me to marry Catherine Westbrook. Suitable heiress from an appropriate family. So you chose the path of least resistance. I chose to protect you, James said fiercely. Do you have any idea what they would have done if they'd known about us? The media, the board members, my own family? They would have destroyed you, called you a gold digger, made your life hell. Emma laughed bitterly. Newsflash, James, my life was already hell. At least with you in it, it had moments of light. I know that now, James said quietly. When I heard them talking about you downstairs, when I realized what you'd been going through alone, Emma, I've never felt rage like that. The thought of anyone hurting you, judging you, making you feel less than the incredible woman you are, it nearly killed me. But it took public humiliation for you to remember I existed? No. James moved closer, his voice urgent. It took hearing them attack you for me to realize I'd rather face any scandal, any corporate consequence, any family disappointment than spend another day pretending I don't love you desperately. Emma's breath caught. In all their late-night conversations, all their stolen moments, he'd never said those words. You love me. I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you. I love your brilliant mind, your compassionate heart, the way you see solutions where others see problems. I love that you read philosophy during your lunch breaks and that you remember the names of every security guard in the building. I love that you made me laugh during the worst period of my life and that you never once asked me for anything except to be seen. Tears streamed down Emma's face. James, I love you, and I love our baby, and I'm done hiding it. He dropped to his knees in front of her, his hands gently covering hers on her stomach. I'm done letting fear make my decisions. I'm done pretending that board approval matters more than the family we're creating. What about your world? The expectations, the suitable heiress, all of that? My world can adjust, James said firmly. Catherine Westbrook can find someone who actually wants to marry for strategic advantage. The board can deal with a CEO who's chosen love over their matchmaking schemes.
Emma looked down at him, this powerful man kneeling before her, offering everything he'd been too afraid to risk before. And if they fire you? If you lose everything? James smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in months. Then we'll figure it out together. I'd rather be broke with you than rich without you. You say that now, but Emma, he stood, cupping her face in his hands. I spent 5 months in corporate hell, making decisions that meant nothing because the only person who mattered wasn't there to share them with. I don't want the company if it means losing you. I don't want the money if it can't take care of our family. I don't want any of it without you. Emma searched his face, looking for traces of the fear that had driven him away before. What's changed? What makes you so sure now? Seeing you hurt because of my cowardice, said James simply. Realizing that protecting you by staying away was actually abandoning you when you needed me most. Understanding that I'm not saving either of us by choosing their approval over our love. Emma closed her eyes, feeling the last of her walls crumble. I'm scared, James. Scared of your world. Scared they'll never accept me. Scared our child will grow up feeling caught between 2 different lives. Then we'll be scared together, he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. And we'll build something new, something that's ours. For the first time in 5 months, Emma felt hope blooming in her chest. Maybe love really could bridge any gap.
The boardroom fell silent as James Sterling walked in with Emma Chen by his side. 12 of the most powerful business leaders in Seattle sat around the mahogany table, their expressions ranging from confusion to outright horror.
James, his uncle, Richard Sterling, spoke first, his voice tight with controlled anger. What is the meaning of this? We called an emergency board meeting to discuss the rumors circulating about your involvement with an employee, not to bring her here. James pulled out a chair for Emma, ignoring the sharp intakes of breath around the table. She sat with quiet dignity, her hands folded over her barely visible bump, while he took his place at the head of the table. "Gentlemen, Catherine," James nodded to the blonde woman seated to Richard's right, Catherine Westbrook, the heiress his family had been pushing him toward for years. "Thank you for coming on short notice. I have an announcement that will affect Sterling Enterprises' future." "If this is about damage control," interrupted board member Harrison Banks, "we've already prepared a statement, a brief indiscretion with a subordinate, appropriate compensation for her silence, a return to proper corporate conduct. You will do nothing of the sort." James' voice cut like steel. Catherine leaned forward, her perfectly manicured fingers drumming against the table. "James, darling, everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is handling them discreetly. I'm sure Emma," she said the name like it tasted bitter, "can be reasonable about a financial settlement." Emma's jaw tightened, but James squeezed her hand under the table. "There's been no mistake," James announced, "and Emma isn't going anywhere. She's carrying my child, and I intend to marry her." The explosion of voices was immediate. "James, think about what you're saying. The media will have a field day. Your father built this company on respectability. This is corporate suicide." Richard Sterling slammed his hand on the table. "Enough!" The room fell silent. "James, step outside with me, now." "No." James didn't move. "Whatever you have to say can be said here in front of my fiancée." "Fiancée?" Catherine's voice was shrill. "James, you can't be serious. Our families have been planning." "Our families have been planning," James interrupted. "I never agreed to anything. I won't marry for corporate strategy or social climbing. I'm marrying for love." Have you ever had to choose between what others expected and what your heart demanded? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappoint people to stay true to yourself. Share your thoughts below. Richard's face was mottled with rage. "Love! James, you're worth $3 billion. This girl works in housekeeping. She's obviously—" "Careful." James' voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Very careful how you finish that sentence." Emma found her voice, steady despite the hostility surrounding her. "I know what you all think. That I trapped him, that I'm after his money, that I'm not good enough for your world." She looked around the table, meeting each pair of judgmental eyes. "You're right about one thing. I don't belong in your world. But James doesn't belong in it either." "Excuse me?" Catherine sputtered. "This world that values net worth over human worth, that judges people by their last names instead of their character, that would force someone to marry for business advantages instead of love." Emma's voice grew stronger. "James is better than that. He's kinder, more genuine, more human than any of you." "How dare you?" Richard started. "She's right," James interrupted, standing. "Emma's right about all of it. I've spent my entire life trying to live up to expectations that were never mine to begin with. Playing a role, making decisions based on what Sterling Enterprises needed instead of what I needed. What you need is irrelevant," Richard snapped. "You have responsibilities." "Yes, I do." James moved behind Emma's chair, his hands protective on her shoulders. "I have a responsibility to the woman I love and the child she's carrying. I have a responsibility to build a life that actually means something, not just a balance sheet that impresses people I don't even like." Harrison Banks leaned forward. "James, if you go through with this marriage to an unsuitable woman, the board will have no choice but to call for a vote of no confidence." "Then call it." The simple statement hit the room like a bomb. "You'd give up everything?" Catherine stood, her composure finally cracking. "The company? The money? Your position? All of it? For her?" James looked down at Emma, who was staring up at him with tears in her eyes. In that moment, he saw their future. Maybe not the privileged, insulated life he'd always known, but something real, something built on love instead of obligation. "I'm not giving up everything," he said softly. "I'm choosing everything that actually matters." Richard's voice was ice. "If you walk out that door with her, you're no longer a Sterling. You're no longer welcome in this company or this family." "Uncle Richard," James began. "Choose, James, right now. The company and the life you were born to, or this fantasy with a woman who will never fit into your world." The room held its breath. Emma started to stand, to tell James he didn't have to choose, that she wouldn't let him sacrifice everything for her. But James gently pressed her back into her chair. "I choose love," he said simply. "I choose Emma and our baby and whatever life we can build together. Keep the company. Keep the Sterling name if it means so much to you. I'll build something new, something better." "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," Catherine hissed. James smiled, the first genuine smile he'd worn in that boardroom in years. "No. The biggest mistake of my life was waiting this long to make this choice." He offered Emma his hand. "Ready to start our real life?" Emma took his hand, standing with quiet grace. "I've been ready since the moment I met you." As they walked toward the door, Richard called out one last time, "You'll regret this, James. Both of you will." At the threshold, James turned back. "The only thing I regret is not doing this months ago." Hand in hand, they left Sterling Enterprises behind, stepping into an uncertain but honest future. For the first time in his life, James Sterling was exactly where he belonged.
6 months later. The small apartment above Chen's family restaurant buzzed with warmth and laughter. Emma Sterling, she still smiled every time she heard her new name, stood at the window watching her husband play with their 3-month-old daughter, Lily, in the courtyard below. "More tea, Emma?" Mrs. Chen, her mother-in-law now in every way that mattered, appeared beside her with a steaming cup. "Thank you, Mama Chen." Emma accepted the cup gratefully. The older woman had embraced James from the moment Emma brought him home, declaring that any man willing to give up billions for her daughter was good enough for the Chen family. The restaurant had become their sanctuary. After leaving Sterling Enterprises, James had invested his personal savings, not the billions tied up in company stock, but still substantial, into renovating the restaurant and opening 2 more locations. Emma managed the books while studying for her business degree online, and James had discovered a passion for the hospitality industry he never knew he possessed. "Your husband is natural with babies," Mrs. Chen observed, watching James gently bounce Lily while discussing menu changes with the head chef. "Very different from what I expected when you first told me you were pregnant by a rich man." Emma laughed. "He's full of surprises." The past 6 months hadn't been easy. The media had had a field day with the story. "Billionaire CEO abandons empire for love" had been splashed across every tabloid. James's family had cut them off completely, just as Richard Sterling had promised. Catherine Westbrook had given vindictive interviews about James's obvious mental breakdown. But they'd also discovered who their real friends were. "Emma, James," the familiar voice of Dr. Patricia Williams, their former co-worker from Sterling Enterprises' legal department, called from the restaurant entrance. Behind her stood Marcus and Jessica, both looking nervous and contrite. Emma's stomach tightened. She hadn't spoken to either of them since the day James had publicly claimed her and their baby. James appeared at her side, Lily sleeping peacefully in his arms. "What do they want?" "I don't know, but..." She moved toward the stairs. "I guess we're about to find out." In the restaurant below, Marcus and Jessica stood awkwardly near the hostess station, clearly out of their element in the cozy family-run establishment. Emma, James, Jessica began, her usual confidence replaced by genuine nervousness. Thank you for seeing us. We weren't sure you would, Marcus added quietly. James stepped closer to Emma, his free arm protectively around her waist. What do you want? Dr. Williams cleared her throat. Actually, this was my idea. I've been working with the new management at Sterling Enterprises. Your Uncle Richard was voted out 2 months ago. The hostile takeover went through after all. Emma felt James tense beside her. Despite everything, Sterling Enterprises had been his family's legacy. The new CEO, David Morrison, has been cleaning house. He asked me to conduct exit interviews with employees who had conflicts with the previous management style. Marcus and Jessica requested this meeting. Marcus stepped forward, his face red with shame. Emma, I need to apologize. What I said to you that day, the assumptions I made, the cruelty, there's no excuse for it. I was jealous, Jessica admitted, tears in her eyes. Jealous of your intelligence, your work ethic, the way you carried yourself with such grace despite everything we put you through. I turned that jealousy into meanness, and I'm so ashamed. Emma studied their faces, seeing genuine remorse where once there had been cruel judgment. I don't know what to say, she said honestly. You don't have to say anything, Marcus replied. We just needed you to know that we were wrong. About you, about your situation, about everything. Watching how happy you and Mr. Sterling are together, seeing the family you've built, it's like a fairy tale, but better, because it's real. The whole department talks about it, Jessica added softly. How you chose love over money, how you built something beautiful together. It's like a fairy tale, but better because it's real. James spoke for the first time since they'd arrived. What happened to Sterling Enterprises? Dr. Williams smiled. The new CEO, David Morrison, is revolutionizing everything. Employee respect programs, living wages, family leave policies. He says he wants to build the kind of company where love stories like yours are celebrated, not punished. He's also been asking about you both, wondering if you'd be interested in consulting. The new Sterling Enterprises could use leaders who understand that business success means nothing without human dignity. Emma and James exchanged glances. They'd built a good life, but the offer was intriguing. We'll think about it, Emma said finally. As the group prepared to leave, Jessica turned back one more time. Emma, your daughter is beautiful, and you were right. James is lucky to have you. After they left, Emma and James sat in the restaurant's quiet dining room, Lily sleeping between them in the carrier. Are you thinking about the offer? Asked Emma. Are you?
Emma looked around at the restaurant that had become their home, at the daughter who had completed their family, at the man who had chosen her over everything else. I think, she said slowly, that we could help them build something better, something that honors both success and humanity. James smiled, the same genuine expression that had captivated her during those late-night conversations so long ago. Together? Always together. 2 years later, the new Sterling Enterprises occupied the same building, but the atmosphere was completely transformed. Emma Sterling, now VP of Human Resources and Employee Relations, walked through the accounting department where it all began. The walls displayed photos from the company's Family First initiatives, employee children's artwork, celebration photos from office baby showers, pictures from the annual family picnic. In the break room, philosophy books sat alongside business magazines, and no one thought twice about a VP who had started as a cleaning girl. James found her there, studying a photo of last year's company retreat. Remembering when you used to clean these floors? He teased gently. Remembering when I thought this world could never change, Emma corrected. When I thought love couldn't bridge the gap between different lives. And now? Emma leaned into his embrace, watching through the window as employees' children played in the company daycare they'd helped establish.
Now I know that love doesn't just bridge gaps, it builds entirely new worlds." James kissed her top of the head. Ready to go home? Lily's probably wondering where her parents disappeared to. "Ready," Emma said. But she paused at the elevator where it all began. "James." "Yes?" "Thank you for choosing me, for choosing us. Thank you for being worth choosing, and for teaching me the difference between living up to expectations and living up to love." As the elevator doors closed, Emma saw their reflection. No longer the invisible cleaning girl and the untouchable CEO, but partners, equals, a family built on the radical idea that love could conquer any obstacle. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin with the simplest choice: to see worth where others see worthlessness, to choose love where others choose convenience, and to build bridges where others build walls. In the end, Emma and James didn't just find their happily ever after. They built it together, one choice at a time. The end. What did you think of Emma and James's journey? Have you ever had to choose between expectations and authenticity? Share your thoughts in the comments below about love that transforms not just individuals, but entire worlds. And there you have it, loves. Emma and James's incredible journey from secret midnight conversations to building a love that literally transformed an entire company. I'm honestly still emotional about this one. The way James chose Emma over billions of dollars, the way Emma stood up to that boardroom with such grace, and how they turned their love into something that made the world a little bit better. Chef's kiss. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between what others expected and what your heart wanted? Have you ever felt invisible in a place where you spend most of your time? Drop your thoughts below because your stories matter too. And if this story touched your heart like it touched mine, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories that celebrate real love, and ring that notification bell so you never miss when I drop new content. Remember, beautiful souls, love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about choosing someone perfectly imperfect for you again and again. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep believing and love that changes everything.